Welcome to the first episode of Custom with Kenny B. I guess I'm calling it that. It's the first episode. What we're doing is rig rundowns of Canopy builds, camper trailers, all that sort of stuff, and kicking off today with the first one of a Canopy. If you've got any ideas on a good name to call the series, let me know down in the comments. Today we're with James and his partner Alex, who's ducked off into the camper trailer. They've been on the road for probably 18 months. In this rig. They've got about a month to go, so fair bit of experience with the rig that they've got set up. And yeah, we're just going to run through basic layout, starting with the vehicle, how they fitted it out, what they like, what they found that works, what doesn't work, and yeah, let's get into it. Righto, so starting with the base vehicle, what have we got, James? What did you start with?
It's a single cab 2013 79 series cruiser, a GXL, so it has power windows from this century.
Fancy.
Yeah.
Fancy.
And
Lovely.
central locking.
Yeah? Wow. Jesus.
I think it was an option at factory stage, but I bought it secondhand.
Okay. How many Ks did you get it with?
I bought it with 60, it's now at 160.
Oh yeah, still pretty low Ks. And most of that would have been on this trip though.
Yeah, 45 or 50 Ks been on this last 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, there you go.
So it was pretty much a carport princess back home.
Yeah, nice.
Weekend trips, and that's about it.
And any reason you went with the 79? Did you have the Canopy in mind when you did that, or you just Landcruiser guy, like most people?
I've always been a Toyota guy, but my last car was a Navara.
Oh, yeah.
So I had a dual cab D22. It just didn't have the room for stuff. Like even an 1800 tray, which is like normal dual cab size, was sort of too big for that car. And now the Canopy we've got's 1800, so that would have been my whole tray before, but I've always liked to have a bit of tray space behind a Canopy.
Yep.
For storing things like firewood and dirty gear that you don't want in the car.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I found I was just never using the back seats because they were so small in most of the dual cabs. Now they're a bit different, but I never use the back seats, so I thought we'll get rid of them and just get a bigger ute.
Yeah, that's the go.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that. I can see on the back you got a boat motor and all sorts of stuff, so we'll get into that bit of storage on the back.
Yeah, there's a few toys kicking around.
Upgrades to the vehicle, so obviously load. So with the Canopy on the back, GVM upgrade?
Yep, got a GVM upgrade before we left for the trip.
Yeah.
We used to just scrape by with the factory GVM. I think it's 3.3 tonne. But then I weighed it before we got the GVM upgrade as part of the paperwork. And with the Canopy empty and everything, it was just under 3 tonne.
Oh,
so
yeah.
you really don't have much payload when you factor in tow ball weight of the camper and a bit of water and fuel and stuff like that. Doesn't go very far.
And the GVM upgrade got you how much extra?
3,950. So we got an extra 650 kilos on there.
Nice. Yep.
We've weighed it fully loaded with the dog and dog food, fuel, water.
Yep.
Big coal shop, like everything in the car, and it was still under that.
Yeah, nice.
By a good 100 kilos or more. So.
Yeah, awesome.
And that's with the ball weight as well.
Yeah, so they are towing a camper trailer. So what do you think that's about, 2 tonne?
The ATM and the camper's 2 tonne.
Yep.
When we weighed that fully loaded with, again, water and everything like that, it was 1.56 plus 200 of ball weight. So 1.76.
Yep. And obviously the ball weight comes off the GVM of your car because it's putting down pressure on the back of the cruiser. So need to factor for that.
Yeah, so about 200 kilos of ball weight.
Yeah.
But now it'd probably be a little bit less. We haven't got the dog and all his stuff in there. And the dog's staying at home with the missus folks at the moment, so there's a little bit more weight come off the car with a big dog and all his food.
Yeah, not having him in there. Yep.
Probably saved about 80 kilos all up.
Yeah, cool. Right, well, we'll touch in that because you've obviously got a dog box section on the front and then Canopy at the back. So the camper, it's basic sort of, side? What do you call that?
It's sort of like a side fold, soft floor.
Yep.
Trackabout camper, they're made in Brizzy.
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty bulletproof. That thing's had less drums than any car I've ever had, so.
Yeah, so that obviously bed, you don't have to have a rooftop on here at the moment for this. Kitchen, I guess, mainly is in there, and you're only doing some sort of activities out of this one. So we'll take that into mind as we go through the bit of the layout. They are towing a camper as well. But yeah, it does give you a lot more stuff. So obviously they've got a tinny and everything on top of there. So if you're doing a big trip and you're on the road for 18 months, then you know, this is probably the setup you want. It'd be very hard to get everything just onto a car. So
it'd be tricky. Doable, but you probably make some sacrifices.
You're probably just making it hard for yourself. Yeah.
The camper's quick setup. It was just easy for us to get something like that, and it can go everywhere off road, pretty much that the car can. So it's not like a caravan where we'd be stuck in a lot of places not getting to see things.
Probably the right balance of size and weight versus practicability and the amount of equipment you've got with you. Yeah, cool. So the Canopy itself is a 1800 Canopy, and it's a full length on this side, and then on the other side, on this side, it is dog box section at the front, just on that quarter, and conventional canopy on the back that passes all the way through to the other side. So the base canopy itself, mate, who's it made by? Why'd you go with them? Roughly what did it cost you?
It's a Kylan Campers. They're from Campbellfield in Melbourne, but they're made in China.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to get an Aussie-made box, Aussie-made tray. It was too expensive for me at the time. And not many places did this layout that I wanted. So we have a dog, but only one dog, even though he's pretty big.
Yeah.
I didn't need a dog box the full width of the tray and then have a smaller canopy behind it. I wanted as much internal storage as we could have, but still have room for the dog.
Yep.
So now there's a few other mobs that have done this sort of layout with the L-shaped canopy and one square dog box, but at the time that was pretty much it. And it cost, I think, between $2.5 and $3 in the raw finish alloy, which
Yep.
in hindsight probably should have got the powder coated one, but it was like another $500 at the time.
Well, I have funny thoughts on that because sometimes practicability is not the same. So I had a creek boat that was probably just under 5 meters, and it was like a side console creek boat.
Yep.
And I wanted it to look nice, so I got painted sides on it and did nothing but scratch it the whole time I had it up creek. So, you know, sometimes it does look nice, but especially if you're doing a big trip like this, you're not just sort of like a weekend warrior with it.
Yeah.
You probably would have found that you'd scratched it and you'd be upset that you scratched the powder coat. But
And this all started out as a weekend warrior setup. You know, we used to do one big trip a year, might be 3 or 4 weeks away, and then just weekends in the high country and stuff like that back home. So we've sort of adapted it to suit full-time travel, but yeah, maybe painted would be a better option because you at least polish the scratches, but
yeah.
powder coat's very hit and miss because it probably wouldn't match the colour of the car either.
Yeah.
And when it was new, the actual raw alloy canopy looked pretty good.
Yeah.
Now it's a bit scratched up and half orange from the cape and
Yeah.
all the other stuff.
You probably hit it with some like alloy cleaner acid when you get home and see how it comes up, and then go from there, I guess.
Yeah, my neighbour's got a truck and he's always cleaning his step tanks and everything
Yeah.
with alloy cleaner and acid. He said that's the go. So
Yeah, I think after you're done with the big trip and then you're just going to use it for regular use at home, then
yeah,
painting or powder coating's probably safe then.
yeah, that's on the cards for one day.
Yeah. It is unusual to see the dog box just in one corner like that. I had to open it and have a closer look at it. It wasn't usually the whole section across is a dog box, and then the whole section at the back is conventional canopy. So that is actually pretty handy if you only got one dog.
Yeah, and it's a big dog box. I actually think it might be a little bit too big. Like I said, our dog's big. He's 40 kilo German Shorthair point across Great Dane. So he's fairly tall, but he's also fairly skinny.
Yeah.
And there's almost too much room in there for him to sort of waggle around and get knocked against the sides if it is a rough track or anything like that. Sometimes a little bit skinnier box actually holds them in there a bit better, and they don't need all that room.
Yeah.
But we've made it work for us.
Mm-hmm. And when you're talking about phases, I guess you're saying you initially just had that as a dog box. And what did you have in the back at the start? You only had it for doing weekends. So did you level up? You had some stuff in here, and then for the Round Australia trip, you had to ramp up what was in there a bit more?
Yeah, for sure. So we started out, there was no storage tubs in the dog box, obviously, because he takes up most of that space, at least front to back, not so much side to side.
Yeah.
In this side of the canopy, we still had the drawers and the drawer fridge. We've had that since the start. It's just the easiest way to go for us without having a big, heavy drop-down fridge slide. But around the other side of the canopy was pretty much all open. Didn't have the shelving, didn't have much storage. I just threw a bit of camping gear in there and a tool bag for in case stuff breaks.
Yeah.
And on the back, a lot of stuff has changed. I never used to have the tailgate on the back, just took that off. And we'd strap firewood on here in like a bit of a pyramid sort of shape.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's probably 600 or 700 mil beside the tile of depth.
Yep.
So we could fit 3-4 nights worth of firewood on there pretty comfortably.
Oh, yeah. So just the tray and the tie downs and use that.
I've got tie downs there. There's one in the middle and there's one on the other side.
Yep.
Had to get rid of that stuff to fit the outboard on for travel.
Mm-hmm.
But we only really used to carry firewood and a little jerry can for the chainsaw. So that's all. We made the brackets for that before we started travelling.
Yeah.
The Travel Buddy was a fairly new addition. I used to have one but never had a mount for it, so never really used it. And then we built this little shelving setup before we left for travel because we knew we needed to stack gear in there instead of just loading your stuff on top of one another and trying to dig through to find the thing at the bottom.
Yep.
I made that all just from that cheap aluminium connector tube from Bunnings. It's like you
Oh.
buy lengths of it,
Yep.
and it's got the little plastic joiners, and you can get right angles and 3-way, 4-way joiners, and it works.
Yeah.
Doing it again, I'd probably spend a little bit more time and actually make something out of aluminium tube and weld it or bolt it together.
Yeah. Yep.
But for the time, it was reasonably cheap. I think it cost under $100 with all the joiners. The joiners don't quite fit together perfectly, like you can tell it's kind of cheap.
Oh, yeah.
I had to hammer some of them in, and then they were so tight it started to split the tube
Oh,
because the
okay.
tube's quite thin.
Yeah.
So I ground down the ridges on the little plastic bungs that go in, and then they're a bit too loose, so I put screws in to hold it all together.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
you get that with DIY stuff.
At least
You know,
it's cheap
nothing's
enough that
perfect.
you can pull it all out when you get home and do something a bit different.
And it's
once you know
easy
it
to
works.
disassemble. Take
Yep.
a few screws out, pull the shelving out, and we can do it again.
Yep.
Or move it if we want to put it somewhere else.
Yep.
yeah.
Base canopy wise for a Chinese canopy, it's still like all this was in air stock. Like it had the adjustable, had the adjustable hinges, you know.
Adjustable gas struts for the doors.
Yep,
Heaps
decent
of height
bracing,
adjustment.
pretty solid brace all across the.
Bracing on the doors and
doors.
on the roof inside too.
Oh, yep.
And
yep,
they
yep,
run
yep.
through into the dog box as well, so
Yep.
it's all held together pretty well.
So it's sort of, even though it's a Chinese canopy, it's still sort of mid-range because you do see some of them that don't have any bracing inside at all. Really, it's just the sheet metal, and you'd struggle to put a rooftop tent or anything on the top. So it's
Yeah.
actually, you know, quite solid for a
The roof and the
import
walls.
canopy.
The roof and the walls are braced pretty well.
Yep.
I mean, if we got to, I can get up there and walk around on the top of it. I've never had a drama with that,
Yep.
but it doesn't seal that well.
Yep.
So the door seals are pretty fine. I've never had a drama with this sort of pinch weld stuff.
Yep.
But on the other side, where the dog box joins the canopy,
Yep.
there was just, I found they seal around the floor with silicone, and most of that just peeled off.
Oh, yeah.
And then I think they just didn't prep the surface for the silicone.
Oh, yeah.
And then in the folded extrusions of the doors, where you've got this sort of shape,
Yep.
and then the same at the top, there was just nothing in there. It was just an open air gap between the two.
Oh, yeah.
So obviously the dog box can fill up with dust. That's not an issue, but
Yep.
that starts to seep into the canopy side of things once you get a fair bit of dust going up the cape or
Yep.
down the red centre.
Yeah.
But I just filled that with some foam and re-siliconed all the edges and haven't had an issue since.
Yeah. And I guess if you're still $1,000 cheaper than, or more, you know, cheaper than a full Australian built one, then I guess,
Yeah.
you know, that's why people do it.
Yeah, at the time, I don't think there was any Aussie-made canopies doing this layout. So
No.
it would have been a full custom job and
Yeah.
probably at least 10K worth to build.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely
which
adds up.
obviously the Aussie wages and the quality is going to be better, and they would factor in things like that sealing better. But
Yep.
at the time, I couldn't afford, or couldn't justify the difference in price.
Even after I've built mine now, I see a lot of them do the flat floor ones where they don't have this part of the extrusion down the bottom. It's all comes down flush the way they do the doors.
Yeah.
And I do sort of wish that I'd done mine that way.
Yep. So when we fitted this out originally, I had to get some C-channel custom made to sit the fridge on and the drawers, because they obviously sit level with the extrusion here.
Yep.
But instead of losing that space and putting a floor in like a lot of people do in these Chinese boxes, I just left that vacant under there, and we've actually got a blow mold table that slides in underneath.
Oh, perfect.
And so when we're set up base camp for, 4 or 5 days or more, we'll pull the stuff out of in the canopy and then actually grab that table and set it up in the camper for just an extra bit of storage.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I was thinking about doing something similar where I slide one in the top in a gap up there somewhere. But wherever works, they make the most out of the space.
Yeah, looking at lots of different setups, especially being on the road, you see where people leave gaps and what you think you could do with that space. And I'd noticed everyone putting a false floor in a canopy lose about 100 mil of storage across the whole canopy. And certain people have put like a little, false floor and a little trapdoor in there to put recovery gear and stuff. But then you're pulling all your gear out off the floor to
just
get to it.
Yep.
Whereas for us, like the table's not a big thing, but it's in there for when we need it, and it's easy enough to get if we need it.
Yep. So in general, for the basic layout, it's mostly storage. So some drawers over here, but one drawer fridge, which we'll get into in a sec with the fridges, because there's one in the camper trailer, one in the canopy. And on the passenger side, bulk storage and some cooking. So we'll dive into a bit of that. So yeah, storage wise, utilising some storage tubs obviously in the dog box while the dog is not here. But yeah, main storage on the driver's side. So these are front runner boxes?
Yeah, front runner cub boxes, which they do like a cub and a wolf box. They're just two different sizes, but the wolf boxes are the bigger ones, and they actually do lots of different options for those. You can have like fully sealed ones, they're a little bit tougher.
Yeah.
But yeah, the cub box is just what fitted in here best. So they're modular, we can take them out and swap them around in different spaces. And
Yeah.
one of them's got like excess food and stuff in it, so we take that in the camper if we're base camp for a while.
Stock up, yeah.
Yeah, so that's food, fire lighting stuff, bug spray, all your general camping sort of gear. This one's just got like excess toiletries and stuff you buy at Coles in bulk that you don't want to run out of, toilet paper and stuff. And that's all car parts.
Oh, yeah.
And because it's a Toyota, I don't have any. It's an empty tub.
Yeah.
It's all spare parts and stuff like that.
The other side here is just full of spare drive axles, but and tail shafts. No, but the front runner gear is really good. The roof racks, storage boxes, so that is a handy way of doing it. At least you know like one box is for each thing, so you can just go straight to it, grab stuff straight out of that box.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, perfect. And above that is the fridge. So we're running, Evercool 40 litre drawer fridge.
Yeah.
Running as a fridge.
Running as a fridge. You can run them as a freezer. They go down, I think, to minus 14 or maybe even lower than that. But we mostly, when it was a weekend warrior, we use it for drinks.
Yeah.
And like lunch food or whatever you're going to have out on the tracks. And now that we're travelling, sort of, our lunches or leftovers and stuff in containers goes in there, and drinks and bits and pieces of other food.
Yep. And then in the camper is
In the camper's a Evercool again, but 60 litre fridge freezer.
Yep.
So it's got a small section of freezer, which is dedicated. We run it on minus 14 all the time.
Yep.
And the fridge next to it, which is like your milk and butter and daily sort of food you go through every day.
Yeah.
Sauces and stuff like that for dinner.
Yeah, so that's a good mix. I guess if you're doing a day trip and leaving the camper somewhere, then you've got enough in the drawer fridge that you can get away with it.
Yeah. And
would you stick with the drawer fridge though?
I like it for this setup, and it's handy being, it's like just not too high that we can pull open the drawer fridge and still see what we're grabbing.
Oh, yeah.
You know, if I'm grabbing beers and stuff like that.
Yeah. My wife wouldn't stand a chance with that.
I'm not overly tall. Alex is 6 foot and I'm just underneath, so.
Yeah, my wife's 5 foot, so no chance.
You might need a step.
Yeah.
But if I was fitting the whole canopy out again, I'd love to put it in upright.
And they're getting cheaper these days. You can get the Kings ones and that sort of stuff. And
even cheaper.
You know, if you're not going in the middle of the desert, you'll probably get away with it.
And there's more storage solutions for an upright, whereas there didn't used to be.
Correct.
So you're not that worried about all your stuff falling out on the ground when you open it.
Yeah, a lot of people are doing different trays and stuff for holding
Different trays. There's like those can buddies that pull out 4 cans in a row.
That's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the 85 litre Kings, I think.
Yeah.
Because I've got the vertical height, so.
Yeah,
cool. And do you reckon you might, when you get home from the trip, you might change it a bit where maybe you do more of a conventional layout on the passenger side and do an upright? And maybe back to a bit of a cooking setup, or you're always going to use the camper, or?
I'm not sure.
Dunno.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Like, I would like to change it around a bit, maybe once you save up a few more pennies, but I'd like to have all the stuff you use every day on one side of the canopy, whereas at the moment we use the fridge probably a dozen times a day, and then some of the stuff on the other side with your 12-volt gear and like our toiletry bags and all that live on the shelving over there, and our drone and stuff. So we use that stuff every day. But then stuff in the drawers here we don't use very often, and a lot of the stuff on the other side we don't use very often. So I'd like to set it up that one side of the canopy is your everyday side that you're going through all the time, and the other side's not so important. You probably don't even open that when you get to camp.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But we'll see how that pans out.
And then as for other storage wise, I see you've got under tray toolboxes, so one on either side.
Yep. These are pretty chock-a-block.
Yeah.
Different brand to the Canopy. Because I found TC boxes were the biggest at the time, not so much length, but the width.
Oh, yeah.
So
they're quite deep,
They're quite deep, and you'll find when you get to the other side why I needed the extra depth. But all my recovery gear lives in here.
Yep.
Even our 10 metre air hose, snap strap, and 2 air on board compressors.
Oh.
Which one's tucked right up high, you probably can't see, but not many toolboxes you can fit 2 compressors and all that gear in there. No. And it's a bit of a mess. And again, doesn't seal well. So there's a bead of grease around all the way around the door seal.
Oh, yeah.
Just to keep Nolan's Brook in Nolan's Brook and not in my car.
Yeah, I did that when I did it. I wiped it all down with wet wipes and stuff, and it just hung in there. But otherwise you got to use grease or Vaseline or something like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So just with the compressors in there, I really want to not ingest water. And then
And they run
Undertrade.
to a tank.
Yes, I've
Yep.
got a 9 litre air tank
Yep.
up under the front of the tray on a 150 PSI cutoff switch.
Yep.
So they just run, fill the tank before we get to wherever we think we're going to air up tyres in the morning sort of thing on a camping trip.
Yep.
And then you get out, your first tyre fills up really quick and the rest take forever.
Yeah.
Just like a normal compressor.
Yeah.
So I probably wouldn't do the tank again, but
Yeah.
it was a cool idea for blowing dust off stuff at camp when you're trying to pack up.
Oh, without having to actually fire the compressor up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even just having that storage instead of running your compressor and getting not much out the end of the hose.
Yeah.
You got that built up pressure to really blast dust off things.
Yep.
But we haven't used it much.
Yep.
Honestly, the dust hasn't been as bad as we thought.
Yep.
And we've got a little 18-volt blower.
Yeah, they're really good. That's
that
what
gets
it is,
most
yeah.
things off.
Yeah. Not as much pressure, but it does the job.
Yeah, no pressure, but more bulk airflow. And so this is my trusty little Stihl chainsaw, top handle, like it's an arborist saw.
Oh, yeah.
That fits in the toolbox with a 16-inch bar.
Yep.
And I couldn't find any other toolbox that would fit the width of this with the handle on the side and still have
A decent
a
size
decent
chainsaw.
length bar on there.
Yep.
They're not made for this size bar, but I put one on because it fits. It's only for cutting firewood.
Yeah.
So, and then there's tool bag in there with just my splitting wedge, tomahawk, earmuffs, gloves,
Yep.
sharpening file.
Yep.
That sort of stuff lives in there.
Yeah. Yeah, nice.
So that's a handy size box.
Yep. And storage on this side. So what have you got on the passenger side? Quite a bit now.
It's where we keep the important stuff. So we got mixers because most of the time the car ends up pretty full and you can't fit cartons and cartons on.
And you got to be careful. I almost paid, it was $55 for a carton of Coke up at Cooktown when I went through.
Yeah.
And they had Coke no sugar on sale for half price, but it was still $35, I think.
Yeah, crazy.
So
And cartons of beer, even worse.
yeah, way
I
worse.
think we were nearly $96 for a carton of beer at
Crazy.
Weeper,
Yeah,
which I
wow.
thought would be really cheap.
Yeah.
So we didn't get it. We just got some Coke and had a bottle of rum in the car and we mixed that. But at the moment there's Alex is drinking Summersby's there in the back.
Oh, yeah.
I'm on the better beers,
On the better beer.
socket set, some car detailing stuff because I really do try and keep it clean
It
while
is-
we're on the road.
It is very clean for a car that just come back from Cape York.
It looks like it's on the way up there.
It looks like it's on the way up there.
Anyway,
Right.
fishing gear, our toiletry stuff.
Yep.
This is all our snorkeling gear, boat stuff,
Yep.
safety gear for the boat, life jackets.
Fire extinguisher and WD-40. So
Yeah.
that's an interesting mix.
This is something anyone traveling Australia needs.
Yeah.
Silicone spray.
Yeah.
It goes on dry.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
it goes on wet but dries instantly and doesn't attract the dust like
Yeah.
normal WD.
I think you want like the trilogy of them, eh? You want silicon spray, brake clean, or no, not brake clean, but maybe WD-40 silicon spray and electrical
Contact
water
cleaner.
disperser. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it, contact cleaner.
Yeah. Well, we've got normal WD and the
Yeah.
silicone spray and brake cleaner.
Yep. Zip ties, duct tape,
Yeah.
and fire extinguisher if it really goes pear-shaped.
Yeah, that's our bigger fire extinguisher. We've got a smaller one that we take in the tinny because you
Oh,
legally
okay.
have to have one in the boat.
Yeah.
And we've got one in the camper as well that it came with. So we've got 3 fire extinguishers between us.
What state do you legally have to have one? Is that a Victorian thing?
In the boat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you
that's
have to have a fire extinguisher.
really.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think it only has to be 1 kilo up to a certain size of boat. Then it has to jump up to like a big dog.
okay.
But
Yeah, I think that's definitely a Victoria thing, unless they brought it in the last few years. When I had boats, it was never. You had flares,
yeah,
mirror, life
I'm not sure if
jackets.
we need to have flares or not. I should
Yeah.
probably look into that.
It's weird how
'cause
it's
we
so
don't have a
different from
flare,
state
but-
to state. The risk is still the same, but
Yeah.
the rules change quite a bit from state to state.
Yeah, so we've got
There you go.
the fire extinguisher for the boat, but we don't have a flare.
Northern Territory, you just need Great Northerns, nothing else. You don't even need a license.
And a Yeti coaster because it's too hot up there.
That's it. And what else you got there in the middle?
In the middle,
Toiletries.
Toiletry
hats.
bag.
Yep.
safety gear for the boat.
Extensive
Up
cap
top
collection.
is, yeah, shout out to CTC.
Yeah.
We've got his and hers piles and piles of caps.
There you go.
Collected a few of those on the road.
#1 shareholder in Country Doggy Apps. I got some new ones coming actually. Mine are ordered. They're
Oh, nice.
8-week lead time. So
I was going to ask you about
I'll have
that.
to look
Knuckles,
up
reach
on that.
out. I
Yeah.
actually want to get some CTC hats made up for us too.
yeah.
Up the top is I've got some spare clothes because
Yep.
we stop so often for work. I bought a heap of work clothes with me, but I don't wear them every day.
Yep.
So there was no point keeping them in the wardrobe, I suppose you'd call it, in the camper.
Mhm.
And then there's first aid kit, heaps of your medicine box back home, Panadol, Voltaren,
Yeah, yeah.
deep heat, all that sort of stuff, all in one
Yep.
handy bag. And we had dog first aid kit in there too when we had Rambo with us.
Yeah, it's a smart idea.
Yeah, Vet in a Van released those
Yep.
like a year or two ago. And they've got like a guide in there that tells you how to check your dog for things as well as what to treat if they've got certain symptoms.
Yeah, awesome.
So it was a really handy kit.
Yeah. Righto, next up, water storage is always a big thing when you're going fairly remote or in on the road for a fair while.
Yep.
So what do you do for water, mate?
We've got a 40 litre water tank under the tray.
Yep.
It's a poly tank. I can't remember where it was from. I think it was eBay, but they're an Aussie made mob and they'll actually put the bungs and outlets and stuff where you want them
Okay.
in the tank. And it
Yep.
was like $120, $150
Yeah.
a few years ago, but yeah, that was a good deal. So I just put a garden hose outlet on there, so I can just plug a hose in and fill the tank.
Yep.
And it's just got a breather made out of fuel line, and then an outlet. It's just gravity fed. We really only use the water under the car for filling drink bottles,
Yep.
or occasionally washing the car if I get really anal about detailing in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So gravity fed works for that. I used to have a pump, but the pump in the toolbox, I think the vibration ruined the brackets for it. They were plastic.
Yep.
And I got some new brackets under warranty, and then they did the same thing. So I said, how about we just don't put the pump in anymore?
I think you see that a bit these days. You get people either do gravity if they can, or if it's not in a location. I see some people doing air pressure sometimes.
Yeah.
Where they just put a compressor on and pump it up.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
a good way to go. But
Yeah.
for the most part, like for what we use it for, it's not super important, and gravity does the job.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, so pretty simple. Tucked up under the tray under here with the tap coming out the side. So keep it simple. 40 litres is enough. How long do you reckon that'll last you off-road? Like, I guess people get this confusion that water's hard to come across. You've got to go pretty damn remote before you're going to have issues where you can't find any water. I've never come across it doing Cape York or any trips like that.
We've never run out of water in our 18 months of travelling. There's been 2 places where you have to pay for it, and that was one was on the Nullarbor, and we stocked up before we hit the Nullarbor, so didn't need to. And one was in Shark Bay in Western Australia, which is right out there, and I think it's all treated desal water out there, so it's a bit more scarce.
So there's a cost to make it.
And
And
then
is it expensive
yes
Oh,
and
really?
no.
for water?
Yeah, so if you stay at a caravan park and get a powered site,
Yeah.
it's included. So you fill up your tank there and it's all included.
Yeah.
But if you need to fill a jerry can at like the public tap, I think it was $2 for 20 litres. So it's not a lot of money, but compared to the cost of water at home,
Yeah.
like where it's $30 for 3 months or whatever.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Obviously,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we filled 1 jerry can there just to be safe. So $2. It wasn't a lot, but everywhere else, water's pretty much free and it's easy to come by. So I would say that 40 litres, we would fill it once every couple of weeks.
Oh, okay. So,
And we've got water in the camper too, which definitely helps.
yeah. And
Yeah,
how much is
so-
it? How much is in the camper?
The camper's got an 85 litre poly tank
Oh, yeah.
and then 2 20 litre jerry cans.
Oh, okay. So quite a bit.
So all up, we're over 160 litres, and depending on how often you shower, that could last us anywhere from a week to 3 or 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no stress there. You got plenty.
If you're staying in campgrounds that have showers and stuff like that, use their showers, and
No, you wouldn't touch
our
it.
water lasts for ages.
Yep.
You really only drink it and do dishes.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Right, on to one of my favourite aspects for a build, solar, batteries and electrical setup. So we'll start from the solar and work our way down. Right, mate, starting from the top. So solar panel on the roof up here, looks like it's on a slide.
Yep. So Victron solar panels, we've got 2.
Yep.
And we custom built that bracket to double stack them because they don't quite fit side by side widthways.
Ah, yep.
They're just a little bit too wide for the roof rack on the canopy.
Yep.
So it's a Victron 24 volt panel. So you get slightly higher voltage output in like low light and cloudy situations.
Yep.
And we just, we run 2 of them, pull one out and use it portably at camp.
Ah,
Most
okay.
of the time that one stays on top of the car, but if it's parked in the shade, then
Yep.
we can drag them both out and just plug them in with Anderson plugs.
So you can't really slide the second one out in the mount to split them and use them up there. So you sort of got to slide it out and then use it on the ground?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. It'd be cool to have a slide where you had like a draw slide where you could just slide it out and it like hung out
If
hung
it
out here somewhere.
like a metre behind the car.
It's probably a bit big, isn't it?
It's a little bit big. They're not that heavy, but it's acts like a big.
Yeah, it is
motor
quite a
on
big panel, isn't it?
on the rack.
Like when you think about it, it's a Landcruiser tray, so it probably doesn't look that big on camera, but it's quite long.
Yeah.
That'd be 1.6,
Yeah, they're
possibly.
Yeah.
Quite a big panel.
And then when the camper's behind us with the boat on top, it would probably almost hit that. So it'd probably be in shade from the boat anyway.
Ah, yep, gotcha. Cool.
You can get it off without like unhitching the camper, you can pull it out and not hit the boat, but
Yep.
half the time you're going to be in the shade. So we find we just chase the sun around camp
Yep.
with panels because we like to camp in the shade to keep the camper cooler and use the sun for power a little bit further away.
Yep. And the second panel, you're just running straight into the camper trailer.
Yeah, at the moment we're just using it to top the camper up because we had an Anderson plug fall apart yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Well,
So-
it came loose from the car and dragged along the road, and
Oh, nice. That'll do it.
it's somewhere on the road between Cairns and Townsville.
Okay. But you can run it into the car if you want. You can run it into the feed.
Yeah,
On the car.
we've got Victron regs in both the camper and the car,
Yep.
and little wire piece and some plugs, so we can run both into one if we need a top up.
Yep.
Or most of the time we just use one for each and
Yep.
top them up that way.
Cool. So yeah, all that solar power, mate, it's running into a battery, obviously. So under the
Yep.
tray here, what's this?
Got a 100 amp lithium battery under the tray, and that's all fed from a Victron solar reg and a Victron DC-DC charger, 30 amps.
Yeah.
So I only went with 100 amp lithium in the car, one, because they're expensive, and two, because we find we're driving a lot when we're at camp.
Yep.
When we were doing weekend trips back home, you're driving every day, and then when we've been on the road, we never really go more than 3-4 days without driving.
Yep.
And the battery lasts most of that time, even with no solar.
Yeah.
But with solar, it keeps up with more than the fridge draws, so
Yeah.
theoretically we can just stay off grid until we need water. So
And I guess the lithium compared to an AGM can take more charge. So you're obviously, you're
Yeah.
getting back up to a decent percentage.
Yeah.
Much quicker than an old school AGM.
yeah, it charges a lot quicker. We used to have AGM batteries in here, and I went from two 120 amp AGMs down to the 100 amp lithium, and
Yeah.
didn't lose much capacity at all out of that changeover.
Would have lost 3/4 of the weight though.
Yeah, it went from like
It's so much lighter.
nearly 80 kilos down to about 15.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah,
it's a
nice.
huge weight saving.
Yep. And like you mentioned, the charging setup, and then I guess the output from that. So into a Victron, is that what, an DC-DC?
DC-DC up the top,
Yep.
a 12 volt 30 amp charger,
Yep.
and then the
Coming in from the MPPT, from the solar.
the solar
Yep.
input just underneath, which is when the panel's on the roof of the car,
Yep.
it's permanently plugged in, or it is plugged in, and then if we want to drag that panel off the top of the car and put it in the sun somewhere else, we can just run an extension lead into here and plug it in as well.
Oh, yep. And for the outputs from there, you can't go overboard with this stuff. Like, I think I'm going to put a Red Arc Red Vision setup in mine, but there's really no need to. So you've obviously kept it pretty simple. So, fuse block to run feeds out to different items, switch panel setup to run whatever you want to run off that, some USB ports, SIG plug, inverter, so you can do a bit of 240 volt. There's really, you don't need much more than that. I see you got a bit fancy. You've got a UE boom that
Yeah, the UE boom
charges up
sits perfectly in a bike drink bottle holder.
so
That's a little DIY hack.
there you go.
If you've got a UE boom, grab a drink bottle holder
It
from
is
your
too.
local bike shop.
I thought that was a UE boom accessory.
No,
there you
that's
go.
yeah,
Bike drink bottle holder.
probably costs like $8.
There you
That was
go.
the best thing I've ever found for this whole unit.
Yeah, that's genius.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then all these so the top bank of switches is lights,
Yep.
blue and orange for in the doors. So
Yeah.
both sides got amber and orange light,
Oh, yep.
amber and white lights.
Keep the bugs away.
And then the center's just white because
Yep.
I figure in the middle you're only really looking for something then to probably
Yeah,
turn it back off
again. Yep.
But they all color code so you know what you're turning on and off.
Yep.
And then underneath is just switches for USB sockets, compressor, fridge, and the SIG socket.
Yep. And 1,000 watt inverter.
Yeah, 1,000 watt Enerdrive inverter.
Yep.
We mostly use it for charging laptops.
Ah, okay.
We don't really have any appliances that we take with us. We were going to bring like a NutriBullet and blender and have smoothies and
Getting a bit fancy.
peace, love and brown rice, all that sort of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
We left
yeah.
that at home.
Everyone's doing that these days, air fryers and induction and
Yeah, I think it's awesome being able to do that from your car and
Yep.
in the middle of nowhere. And cooking in the wind induction is actually a game changer. We've travelled with people that use it.
yeah.
But
Choose the juice.
it chews a lot of juice. You need to have more battery. You
You
need,
need double that. Yeah, you need 200 probably.
Yeah, and then you got to
Yep.
store all that gear somewhere too.
Yeah.
And we live out of the camper, so we don't
Yep.
really need to cook in the car.
Yep.
So
Last
it's-
weekend camping, a mate of mine's got some Makita gear and he's got a little Makita induction.
Ooh.
It looks like a microwave,
Oh,
but you
okay.
open it up and it's got little Jaffle maker trays, but
That's
it's all
cool.
Makita induction. You can run it off 18 volt
Yeah.
or 240. So
Okay.
I'll-
I've got Makita gear, so I need to look into that.
Yeah.
'Cause that's
Yeah.
I might be taking that to work with me when we stop
Yeah,
travelling.
we made spaghetti jaffles and it was like 4 degrees outside. It was
Oh,
it was
stop
pretty
it.
good. So I reckon even a Canopy layout, you could revise this and you could just slot the Makita unit in and not have to worry about,
Yeah.
you know, like a big fancy chef unit sort of thing.
Well, we've got the Travel Buddy up there, and we use it for
Yep.
pies and chicken tenders and pastries and stuff like that on the road. A lot of people do cook pretty fancy meals in them with, you know, roasts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I've done other meals in it before, but for the most part, it's just
Nah.
a quick snack while you're on the road.
For me, if you get to that level, I'd have a baby Q that I'd pull out and probably do that with. I think that's what I'm doing. I've got a King's Travel Buddy version to go in mine.
Yeah.
So I probably will put it in there just for something different. But
It's good to put your lunch in when you leave home and then pull up and eat it. You don't have to stop and cook. But we don't use it for making meals at camp or anything like that.
Yep.
And that's a homemade bracket too.
Oh, yeah.
It's a repurposed bracket.
Yeah.
So that was an equipment shelf from an IT like computer rack.
Oh, yeah.
It's upside down at the moment, but they bolt into the rack, and then you like your router or security monitor or something sits on that shelf.
Yep.
Does
the job.
Yeah, that will do the job for me. I painted it black so it didn't look like it was from an IT room anymore.
Yeah.
But someone was throwing that out at work, so I grabbed that.
That's the way to do it. So power-wise, duplication. So you got power in the van as well. Do you have an inverter and everything in the van?
We don't have inverter in the
don't need
camper.
it.
I could have put one in because we've got bigger lithium set up in the camper, but we just don't need it. Everything in there runs on 12 volt.
Yep.
It's got its own water pump, its own solar reg and everything, so we can run it independently. It's on coil springs, doesn't have airbags, so we don't need its own compressor.
Oh, yeah.
And just charging phones and strip lights and everything like that run on 12 volt. So if we need to run something on 240, we just put it in the car and we can take it with us driving all day.
Yep. That's heaps.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's plenty of power for us.
Yep. And to cap off the outside, we'll go through awnings. So awning this side, shower tent the other side, and spare wheel and boat motor and everything on the back. So yeah, mate, starting off with the main awning on this side. So
We got the fancy King's Deluxe awning.
Ooh.
It's 2.5 metres wide and 2 metres along the side of the ute.
Yeah.
So it doesn't hang out too far and catch the wind.
It's amazing how small these conventional ones are. When I look at my 270, they're a big unit to put on the
Yeah.
side of the car. So
And the big ones just look so standard on every car you see
Yeah,
now. These look like, oh, what's in there? Is that like a fishing rod bag or
yeah,
what?
yeah,
But we don't use it very often because the awning on the camper is pretty big
Yeah.
and we sit under there every afternoon. So this is here for if we need extra shade, if the sun's coming in on a funny angle or we go down the beach somewhere and want to set up.
yeah,
But we just strap our shovel to the side of it because a big steel shovel holder is just extra weight and something else you got to hang off the side of your car you don't need.
yeah.
And it's easier to get the shovel out of 2 little grunt straps than it is to get it out of a mount where
the
you got to
full screw
unscrew
mount,
it and stuff like that.
Yep. And it's obviously hung in there for 18 months, so obviously works.
I've had that awning for probably 4 or 5 years and
Oh, there you
haven't
go.
killed it. I've
There you
killed
go.
some of the older ones, like the older Kings ones. I've had one flip over the car because I didn't think it was windy, and then it got
No.
windy, and
Yep. But they're so cheap. Buy another one. Where
they're
you go.
so cheap. We've had one fill up with water overnight once. In the high country, it rains randomly, as it probably does up here sometimes over summer too. And it just filled up with water, and one of the poles bent.
Yeah.
So I pulled the canvas out of it because they got the sail track on both ends.
Yeah.
And Velcro down the side. I pulled the canvas out of it and used that as a sidewall for our awning now when we go
Oh, yeah.
on camping trips with just the ute. And I just binned the chassis of it because it was not worth anything.
Oh, there you go.
But they're like $80 to replace. So
Yeah, cheap as chips.
yeah, can't
Yep.
go wrong.
And so why have you gone the conventional one? Obviously, I can sort of see there that a 270 might be a problem because of the camper trailer, the boat motor, probably.
Yeah, so a lot of the time we pull up for 1 or 2 nights at a time and don't unhitch the car from the camper.
Yep.
Or if we do, we just wind the jockey wheel off, but the car stays in place. So a wraparound awning would actually, if it fit between the back of the car and the front of the tinny on the camper trailer, all it would be shading is the drawbar. You couldn't sit under there, it wouldn't give you any real benefit.
Yeah.
But I think it would actually hit on the tinny, so we
Yeah.
wouldn't be able to wrap around without taking the car off. I do like the look of those 180-degree freestanding awnings. They've just started coming out, but they weren't freestanding when we left for this trip.
Yep.
There wasn't any available, so
Yeah, that'd be nice long term. They're a lot more pricey than the conventional Kings ones, but it would be more user friendly.
that's something I'd look at putting in because you just get that a little bit extra length in your shade, whereas the 2.5 metres is great for in the right spot, but when the sun comes in on too much of an angle,
Yeah,
it's not that great, so it's probably why we don't use it that much.
Yeah, cool. And then on the other side, small one looks to be a shower tent.
Yeah, just a 1 metre cube shower tent from BCF, the XTM Special.
Yep.
Again, I looked at them all before we left and decided there's not that much difference in any of the other name brands to this one or the Kings or
Yeah.
whatever. This one was on special when we bought it, and we use it for short-term setups. So if we set it up last night, we were here for one night before today, and we had a shower in there last night instead of setting up the big double ensuite,
Yep.
which fits you obviously your toilet and shower in it. We've got one of those as well for a long-term camp. But honestly, the handiest this thing's ever been was on our way to a station job once. We're in the middle of outback South Australia, and I got crook. I ate something bad, I don't know what it was, but I had to pull over on the side of the road and there's no toilets.
Yeah.
So we quickly grabbed the porta potty out the front of the camper, set this up on the side of the road, and
Hung out in there for a while.
yeah,
It's gonna be rough being sick on the road. That's I haven't come across that yet, but if you're on the road for that long, it's bound to happen.
it's bound to happen once, and we're lucky that's pretty much the only time we've been sick on the road.
Yeah.
But yeah, that little shower awning paid for itself that day, because I had somewhere out of the wind and out of public view to do some less than pleasant business.
Yeah. And to run the shower, so what's the shower setup? It's obviously there's like a hot water pump. Are they cold showers,
Yeah.
hot showers? Hot showers?
We've got a Smart Tech hot water system.
Oh yeah.
So just runs off a gas bottle. We've got 2 gas bottles on the camper.
Yep.
So we can either run it off the same one as the stove or
Yep.
take our other gas bottle out and use it portably. So the Smart Tech just stands on its own tripod next to the shower tent,
Yep.
and then we can have shower either fed from the tank in the car
Yep.
or the jerry cans on the camper.
Oh yeah.
And we normally do that because then you can just take them anywhere.
Yeah.
So if we set up a base camp somewhere for a week or more,
Yep.
we'll set up the double ensuite with the toilet and shower. And then we normally just set the tripod up with the Smart Tech next to that, and you don't have to have it right next to camp,
Yep.
because then obviously your water from the shower's running all
Yeah.
through the ground and
Yep.
makes everything damp.
Yeah, I'm looking at exactly that with the toy hauler build at the moment, trying to get it on the offside. But I'm trying to
Yeah.
think about whether the water's going to run back under the trailer or anything. I have to make sure what sort of ground I'm on. But
Yeah.
yeah, cool. So in this back section on here, what's that, roughly 500 mil?
I think it's about 6 or 650.
Oh yeah.
It's bigger than it looked
Yeah.
because it's so jam-packed full of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, the proportions are definitely big because it's on a single cab. It's taken me a bit to get used to.
Yeah.
So yeah, good use of storage on the back here. So obviously spare wheel.
Spare wheel on a GSL Fab spare tyre mount.
Yeah.
At the time, they were the only ones doing one that had this like self-centering disc, but also the support underneath,
Oh yeah.
because I didn't want all that weight hanging off the wall of the canopy.
Yep. Yep.
So even if this canopy moves onto a trailer or another car or something at some point, that wheel's never going to be hanging off the wall. It's always supported from the bottom.
Yep.
And then behind here, we've just got the little chainsaw jerry can,
Yep.
the 10 litres of oil for the car, which is just left over from the service. They take like 9 and a bit.
Oh,
So
yeah.
there's always some spare oil.
Yep.
And then 25 horsepower 2-stroke Merc
Oh
in the
yeah.
long shaft. So it takes up a bit of room,
Yeah.
but we just made these mounts at home before we left.
Oh, so they're not something, they're custom.
Yeah, this was all custom made at home. So
Yeah, nice.
your little, what would you call it, a V mount for a trailer.
That usually,
on an
yeah,
outboard
comes off the
from
back.
a little boat trailer.
Yep.
That's
Chop
been
that
hacked
down,
up
put
and
it on there.
bolted to the angle, and then
Yep.
engine mounts from a V8 Landcruiser crate motor that Dad had laying around his workshop.
Okay. Yeah.
Chopped up and then welded to this bit of steel box,
Yep.
just to act as like a fake transom to
Yeah.
actually screw
Bolt
the
it
outboard
onto.
to.
Yeah.
And that's solid as. It hasn't moved since we left home.
Yeah.
It was a little bit of a rush job, but
Yeah.
yeah, apart from looking a bit how you going, it's actually strong as an ox, so
Oh.
can't complain with that.
Nice and snug, not going anywhere.
Yeah,
And what's the boat on the back? So obviously over there, just basic tiller steer. What's it?
yeah.
3.5, 3?
It's a Quintrex 3.7 Outback Explorer.
Oh, okay.
So the Outback model versus standard, it's got like 100 mil higher sides,
Yep.
which we're pretty worried about being southerners coming into crop country.
Yeah.
And it was the widest tinny of the car topper sort of range that we could find.
Oh,
so
yeah.
it's more stable. It's got a pretty flat floor in it.
Yeah, nice.
It's super stable at rest. It handles the waves fairly well. It's got that big sort of, they call it like an F series bow,
Yep.
widens up at the front instead of
nice.
coming to a fine point. So
Yeah.
that's Rambo's favourite place to stand. He puts his paws right up on the front when you're cruising along. And
Oh, yeah.
yeah, like something hanging off the front of a Titanic.
Thinks he's king of the world.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, that's it.
Right, so that pretty much wraps it up for the layout. We'll get into a few questions about what works, what doesn't work, and wrap it up with some cost assumptions.
Yeah.
Right, mate, so out of all the canopy, everything on it, what's your top 3 things you like about the way it's set up at the moment?
Top three would have to be the solar panel bracket,
Yeah.
which I made. Alex's dad is a sheet metal fabricator back home, so we went in, knocked that up, one arvo in the shed.
Yeah.
Double stack the solar panels,
Yeah, it's
so it
very
creates
neat.
a massive sun buffer for the roof of the canopy.
Yep.
Keeps it nice and cool, especially that's on the side where the dog box is.
Yep.
So Rambo wasn't getting roasted in the sun up in the Kimberley and stuff.
Yeah.
That would have to be number one. Number two would just be 12 volt. It's a fairly basic setup, but we've got power for everything that we need
Yep.
and more. Like there's all spare outlets and stuff like that.
And I guess doing that yourself, you sort of, if something goes wrong, you know
Yeah.
what's run to where, and
Yeah.
you know, because you kept it simple. I guess with the bigger systems, if you go an Enerdrive, well, I'm going the Red Arc.
Yeah.
I guess everything's internal to the unit. Touch wood, nothing goes wrong with it. They're a quite expensive unit.
Yeah.
But if something goes wrong, the whole unit's dead. I guess
Yeah.
if something little goes wrong in that, you can replace a fuse block or just the MPPT or
Yeah, and we've had different DC to DC chargers over the journey, and they've had like the integrated solar and stuff like that. And then if one thing does go wrong, the whole thing's cactus, or sometimes like each integrated part are not the best available of that sort of thing. Whereas I found like the Victron solar regs, pretty much everybody runs those because they're just the best you can get, especially bang for buck.
Yeah.
You can control it all through an app in your phone.
Yeah.
You know exactly what it's doing.
Yeah.
DC to DC, I wanted to have that standalone. So
Yep.
if one part of another unit failed, it wasn't going to drop out completely.
Yeah.
And then the Enerdrive inverter, I just got it on a good deal.
Yeah, they're a good brand. Yeah.
Yeah, good brand, good deal.
Yeah.
Awesome. Couldn't pass that up.
Good stuff. And number three.
Number three is tough. I would say the layout in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like when we fitted it out, it was hard to fit everything we wanted into this size platform. And, you know, nobody made that shaped canopy with the dog box included.
Yeah.
And I was pretty happy with how the drawers and the fridge managed to fit and then have the shelving behind without losing any space in between all that.
Yeah.
So I would say just the layout.
Yeah.
Putting time into sorting out how you want things to sit
Yeah.
makes all the difference when it comes to usability.
Yeah, nice.
You know where you want things to live.
Cool. Sounds good to me.
Yep.
So you obviously three favourite things, but what
Yep.
is something you would possibly change? Anything you don't like about it at the moment?
Yeah, like I said before, I would like to change possibly the layout in terms of putting the fridge and some more storage on this side, on the passenger side.
Yep.
Just to keep it so that when you pull up at camp, you open one side of your canopy, everything you use every day is there.
Yeah. Yep.
And then the other side becomes a bit more like, you know, you might need that every now and then, but
Yep.
you don't need to always face one side of the car to camp.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas at the moment, we try and back into camp so that you can get to both sides of the car quickly
Yep.
because you need things on both sides all the time.
Yeah.
Whereas if you had it set up so one side, you just always pull up that side facing your camper,
Yep.
or on the side of the road, you just run in, grab exactly what you want,
Yep.
and shut it up.
Yep.
Just make things easier.
And I think that's the most traditional setup. I see that with the camper trailers I've had and with the way I'm setting up my canopy is,
Yeah.
you know, kitchen, fridge, outlets, everything, food is pretty much almost on the passenger side all the time.
Yeah.
And then the back side, you might be charging a laptop or tools or, you know, you might have a spare barbecue, like a BBQ or something there, but you don't go around there that much.
Yeah.
Camper trailers are the same. All your kitchen slides on the passenger side, and on the off side's usually a storage box for a generator or,
Yeah.
you know, something you don't go to that often. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, our camper kitchen's pretty handy. It all pulls out the back.
Yep.
So you've got all the awning space covers your kitchen and everything like that.
Yeah.
But I would definitely change that so that you just park one side of the car and use that all the time at camp.
Yeah, cool.
And I'd put bigger battery capacity.
Yep.
Now that lithium's a bit cheaper,
Yep.
I'll just
double.
put 2 under there.
Yeah.
Probably go 200 amp or
Yep.
somewhere around that.
And they're so light,
250.
you know, you can do 2 of them and you're still lighter than one AGM.
Yeah,
So then you're never going to run out.
but make sure you get a waterproof one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, mine's not waterproof.
Oh,
It's got a little screen on the front of it that just tells you like your charging amps and your percentage.
yep.
And I think that fell victim to Nolan's Brook.
Oh,
Battery still works fine.
Yeah.
And it's still charging and discharging fine.
yep.
But we just don't have that gauge to tell how full it is anymore.
Oh, okay.
So without your fancy like sort of BMS system and all your, you know, your red vision or anything like that to
Yeah,
tell
yeah.
exactly what percentage it is externally,
Yep.
we don't know. But the charger tells you what stage it's out of charging anyway when you're driving. So
Yeah, okay.
it's not that big a deal
No.
for now.
Yeah. Oh, I think it'll do you till you get home and then revisit it.
Yeah, that's it.
Cool. And to wrap it up, mate, what do you think the total cost would be roughly? I think you've done it in a few phases, so it's probably a little bit hard to tell, but
Yeah.
what's the big items?
Adding it up as we've tracked it, sort of going through the different phases. Can we go somewhere else? Because Alex is listening. You don't need to hear what it costs.
Block your ears.
Yeah, block your ears. I'd say it's around 10 grand for the tray, canopy, toolboxes, the 12 volt setup, the fridge, drawers included.
Yeah.
Like a lot of it's been DIY. I've done all the 12 volt gear myself.
Yeah.
Just bought it and then fitted it all off.
Yeah.
Compressors, everything like that included, would be up around that 10 grand.
Yeah. And
It sounds like a lot of money, but for a completely fitted out with storage and everything, I think that's pretty reasonable these days.
Yeah, in the Landcruiser size too, where that's a fair bit bigger canopy than that'd be a full size canopy on a dual cab pretty much.
Yeah.
So on a single cab, that's not too bad.
No, the biggest tray you tend to get on a dual cab's 1800 long.
Yeah.
And that canopy is 1800 on its own, so it's a fair bit more space. It just means you start fitting out a fair bit more gear.
Yeah. Right, mate, that just about wraps it up for the canopy build. I guess you're coming to the end of your big lap around Australia, but if people want to check out your content, where do they find that?
At usandapup on Instagram.
Yeah.
All one word, so you can search that. I think it even comes up if you just search our
link it here
number
somewhere.
plate, us and pup.
Yep.
It's in our bio description, so
yeah, nice.
Should come up there.
I'll put something here and I'll link it down below in the description. So jump across, check that out. You can see all the content, all the places they've been doing the trip around Australia for the last 18 months. And then obviously you're going to be back home in a month, back down in Mexican country, but you're obviously going to knock out some trips once you get back down there. Probably no 18-month trip, but
yep.
You reckon some weekends around the sites of Victoria, so high country?
Yeah, we do a lot of high country trips back home.
Yeah.
We live pretty close to the high country, so it's a pretty easy getaway for us. But
yeah,
we're still going with our Cape York content because we're a couple of weeks behind posting where we've been.
Yeah.
So we're still going with Cape York, making our way down the east coast, all the beach camps, all the bush camps. We're going to try and meet up with some people down through southern Queensland and see how we go there.
Yeah, awesome.
And then camping on the Murray on our way back home.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Right, mate. Well, yeah, thanks for showing us through the rig. It's always interesting to see different people's setups. So, yeah, hopefully this comes out pretty good for an episode 1. Keen to catch up with some more people who have custom rigs. If you're around Townsville or within a couple hundred Ks and you've got some cool sort of customised setup, give me a yell on the socials, be able to catch up, have a beer and talk through your setup. And, yeah, that'll do. See you in the next one.
Too easy.
Is it who? That up. So the base.
Sorry, at least it wasn't me.
And it starts out. It'll get worse. Right, our next category. We're gonna do it again.
Category. We're going to Geelong.
Right, probably one of my favourite segments, categories. What do I call it? And then output from that. Pretty simple setup. So you know, you like.
You'll do.
No, I that up.
Hang on.
You got OCD. Like,
yeah, I do. Hang on. I really do have OCD. I'm not kidding.
Right. And for the output, no.